If sea salt were a person, he would be. It sits up on a fancy shelf at a grocery store, charging 4 times the price of normal, looking weathered, a little smug. And here is the thing nobody tells you about that grumpy little man. Without sea salt, you would already be dead because he is not dead someday, dead right now. Because the salt you sprinkle on your fries without a second thought is the exact same substance running every heartbeat in your chest and every thought inside your skull. Take it away completely, and your nerves stop firing, your muscles stop answering, your brain goes quiet. We don't need salt the way we need dessert, we need it the way we need oxygen. So the real question was never whether we need it. The real question is much stranger. How did a rock that washes out of the ocean end up being on switch for being alive? Let's start with what's happening in your body at this exact second. Right now, while you're watching this, you have roughly 86 billion neurons in your brain firing electrical signal. Every thought, every blink, every flicker of, wait, is this video any good? All of this is electricity. And that electricity doesn't run on copper wire, it runs on salt. When a nerve fires, sodium, half of what we call salt, rushes across the cell wall and creates a tiny electrical spark. Your muscles work the same way. Your heartbeat is quite literally a salt-powered pulse, repeating around 100,000 times a day without you ever asking it to. So strip the metaphor away, and here's what you are. You are a warm walking salt water battery that fell in love and learned to do taxes. Sodium is a current, and without enough of it, the battery doesn't dim, it just stops. Which raises an obvious question. If salt is this important, if it's the difference between a thinking human and a still one, why doesn't your body just make its own? It can't, and that single fact has quietly shaped everything about who we are. Your body can manufacture an astonishing list of things. It builds protein, hormones, whole new cells while you sleep, but it cannot make sodium out of nothing. There is no gland that produces salt, so your body does the next best thing. It becomes a hoarder. It guards its salt obsessively, recycling it through your kidney, clinging to every milligram. And yet you leak it constantly. Your sweat is salty, your tears are salty. Crying during a sad movie, and you are, in a small way, draining the very thing keeping you alive, which has to be the most dramatic possible way to lose an argument with a pixar. This is also why animals lose their minds over salt. Deer, elephants, cattle, wild goats, herbivores will walk for miles to search a salt lick, a natural deposit where they can scrape minerals off bare rock. Plants barely contain any sodium, so plant eaters live in a permanent low-grade salt emergency. There are records of animals climbing terrifyingly near vertical cliffs and squeezing into pitch-black caves, risking death just to lick the walls. They're not being weird, they're refilling the battery. The craving for salt isn't a flaw, it's one of the oldest survival instincts on Earth, written into creatures that have never seen an ocean in their lives. But here is where the story takes a turn that genuinely sounds made up, because if too little salt can kill you, too much water can kill you too, and it kills you by attacking your salt. Your blood sodium sits in a narrow safe zone, around 135 to 145 on the scale doctors drift too slow, and you've got a condition called hypernatremia. And one of the sneakiest ways to cause it is something we've all been told is pure virtue, drinking water. Pour in far more water than your kidneys can clear, and you dilute the salt in your blood. When that happens, water floods into your cells to balance things out, and they swell, including the cells in your brain, which is locked inside a skull with nowhere to expand. The result can be confusion, seizures, and in the worst case, death. This isn't a horror movie hypothetical. It has happened to marathon runners who drank too much during a race, and to people in radio station water drinking contests. The substance everyone calls the healthiest thing on earth becomes lethal, not because water is bad, but because it washed out the salt, so you exist on a knife's edge. Too little and your nerves can't fire. Too much water and your brain swells. Being alive, it turns out, is a balancing act performed in salt every single second without your permission. So now, picture a human 10,000 years ago, before refrigerators, before science, before any of this was understood. You don't know about sodium, you don't know about neurons. You just know two things in your bones. You crave salt, and you will die without it. What do you think a substance like that does to a species? It makes them go a little insane over it. And they did. For most of human history, salt wasn't seasoning, it was technology. Before refrigeration, salt was the only reliable way to keep meat and fish from rotting. A barrel of salted cod could feed a family through a brutal winter. Salt didn't just flavor food, it stopped food from killing you, and it let humans store the future. Whole cities rose up around salt. Trade routes were carved across deserts to move in. Wars were fought over it. Government taxed it because they knew people had no choice but to buy. You can't even hear the echo of that obsession in the word salary. The English word traces back to the Latin salarium, which is built from salt. Now, you've probably heard the popular version that Roman soldiers were literally paid in bags of salt. Historians are pretty skeptical of that one. There's no solid evidence soldiers got handed salt as wages, and the famous proof turns out to be a misquote that's been copied for centuries. The honest version is quieter but still remarkable. Salt was woven so deep into Roman life and money that its name got stitched permanently into a word for getting paid. When someone says a worker is worth their salt, they're repeating an ancient compliment without realizing. And the obsession didn't stay ancient. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi walked roughly 240 miles to the sea over 24 days for one reason: to make salt. The British Empire had banned Indians from producing their own and taxed the salt they were forced to buy. Salt being something nobody can refuse and survive. So Gandhi reached down, lifted a lump of natural salt from the shore, and turned the most basic mineral on earth into a symbol of an entire nation's freedom. Tens of thousands followed him. A rock from the sea helped crack one of the largest empires in history. Which brings us to the strangest part of all. Why does the inside of your body taste like sea? You've probably heard the line that human blood is just seawater, that we carry the ocean inside us. It's a beautiful idea. It's also taken literally not quite true, and the real story is actually better. Modern seawater is roughly 3 to 4 times saltier in your blood. If your blood were as salty as today's ocean, you would be in a serious trouble. So the simple version, your blood is a myth. But over a century, scientists noticed something they couldn't shake. It wasn't the amount of salt that was theory, it was the recipe, the particular blend of minerals floating in the fluid around your cells. The proportions of sodium, potassium, calcium, and the rest bears a haunting resemblance to just more diluted. And there's a long-standing scientific idea going back to years like Archibald Macquer in the early 90s that this isn't a coincidence at all. The thinking goes like this. Life began in the sea, and the very first cells were bathed, and they turned their entire chemistry to that environment. When living things eventually crawled onto land, they couldn't just leave the ocean behind, so they took it with them, sealed inside, as the salty fluid that still surrounds every cell you have. Now, this is a hypothesis, not a closed case, and scientists still debate the details, but sit with the possibility it would mean that every time your heart beats, it's beating in a tiny private ocean, that the a tear tastes like the sea, and in a way, it is the sea, a few billion-year-old recipe your body never stopped following. We didn't leave we just learned to carry it around inside a skeleton. So after all of that, the electricity, things, the empires, the ocean in your veins, you expect the salt itself to be something magical, which leads to the question you've probably been waiting for. Is that expensive? Craggy, gray-haired sea salt actually better than the cheap white stuff in a cardboard cylinder? Here's the quiet truth. Chemically, they are almost twins. Both are around 97 to 99% sodium chloride, the exact same molecule, doing the exact same life-saving job. Sea salt does carry trace amounts of other mineral in the ocean it came from, which is why it sometimes has a faint color or a coarser crunch. But those traces are so small that nutritionally they barely register. You'd have to eat a dangerous amount of sea salt to get a meaningful dose of anything else. Meanwhile, ordinary table salt usually has one upgrade sea salt doesn't. Added iodine, a tiny addition that, when it was introduced about a century ago, dramatically reduced a once common deficiency that caused thyroid problems and developmental harm. Cheap, boring iodide salt is one of the quietest public health wins in human history. So the grumpy premium mineral on the fancy shelf, the one charging 4 times the price and acting like an inventive flavor, is running the same ancient miracles as the salt in a paper cylinder. The magic was never the brand, it was never the ocean it came from or the price tag on the front. The magic was always the sodium, the same spark in the expensive jar and the cheap one alike, which means the most ordinary thing on your entire table has been hiding in plain sight this whole time. It's a piece of the ocean. It's the reason your heart is beating while you watch this. It's a substance so vital your body refuses to make it, so dangerous it can kill you if it dose tips the wrong way, and so valuable it built cities, funded armies, named your paycheck, and helped free a nation. For thousands of years, humans treated it like treasure, fought for it, walked across deserts for it. And somewhere along the way, we got so good at having it that we forgot what it was. We started calling it basic. We started calling it boring. So next time you reach for the salt, pause just for a second because you're not really flavoring dinner. You're topping up the